Get in, loser. We're building a roll cage. Well, would you look at that, Blake? My roll cage is finally starting to look like a roll cage. So stick around and we'll get you caught up. All right, well, we are bedlined, back together with our base plates and our main hoops in. So we are going to start fitting these A-pillar bars through the dash. I'm going to have to do some cutting out down here on the bottom once we kind of get our angles figured out. And once these two bars are in, the rest of this should be pretty straightforward. These are going to be the tricky one, though, because we got to follow along here, angle out and forward, and then down and back in to tie into that plate while going through a small hole. So wish me luck. This is always the fun part. So let's find our angle first. Start with like 60. That is way too steep. I got a feeling we're going to be making some more of these. Actually, come off of here. 45 looks pretty. That looks pretty spot on. Let me grab some tape. Start getting some base measurements here. So this way, we're going to mark it on here so that we can always bring this back to the same spot. I think I'm going to need to remove my cluster so that I can hork this guy in here. And I think that's going to be the only way. Let's pull the cluster. I knew it was something stupid. I'm going straight up goggles for this thing. Because I got to get a lot of shape into this. And this thing throws just crap everywhere. Even with normal safety glasses, if your head's as close to it as I'm about to be, you will get crap in your eye with one of these. So, we're going to avoid that. Because I don't want to deal with that today. Cool. You can get the rest of that with a sander. I'll bet you this is going to be like 35. But we're going to make a 30. And we'll start with that. Whoopsie. So we want to be right in line with here. And we want the bottom going straight down to the plate, which it is right there. I guess we're just going to have to bend a sacrificial piece and hope for the best. I don't really have a really great way of measuring how much rotation I need to put in these tubes. I've kind of just spun the tube and marked it and looked at it, and it looks about 10 degrees. So this is probably going to be a sacrificial tube unless my eye jiggering is just that good, which is possible. We'll see. I'm usually pretty close. So worst case scenario, I waste a chunk of tube, but I have a lot more direction on what we're doing. So let's get this set up in the bender and do it to it. From my eyeballing, I had my centered mark on it. I'm going to see right about there. So we're going to call that 25 degrees. Okay. And now We are bending to 30. Perfect. Let's see where that gets us. This is either going to be perfect and I got really lucky, or this piece is garbage because I cannot fix rotation. I can add a little bit of bend, I can take a little bit away. Once it's bent, you ain't fixing rotation. At least I don't know how to do it, so wish me luck. For this angle to be right, and then that comes down to the center of the plate. And then we're up along that, and there's the problem. Would you look at that? The fog's gone after freaking a month. So, it's bright out, but I'm just going to let it warm. Just going to let it warm up out here a little bit longer because it's chilly and my joints are cold. All right, so this tube's bent. The rotation's way off. You can see that there. If I have this straight with the A-pillar. And we're pretty close to center there, but I'm not happy with this rotation here, or this angle of bend here. Well, this tube fits like crap. So, I actually started this like 2 weekends ago. But, you know life, man. Sometimes you're pushing for months on end, and you just slam into a wall. And so I bent this tube based off of my quick little measurements that I had done, and got my rotation wrong. I'm not happy with the way that went, and mentally I just slammed into a wall. So I had to kind of switch gears for a couple weeks, get that energy back in my brain. So we're at it now. We're fresh. The fog's gone. We're good. So what I'm going to do is, I kind of figured this was going to be a sacrificial piece to begin with. So we're going to make it more of a sacrificial piece and get these bends nailed in. So I'm going to cut it right about here so that we can get this top piece dialed in. And then I'm going to get the bottom piece dialed in. Yeah, we'll get the top piece dialed in. And then I'll get the bottom piece dialed in individually. And then I can get my rotation manually by clocking that and then matching it. So we're going to cut this up. We're going to start fitting this tube better. And I'll be right back. Alright, so we got bottom half, top half. I'm thinking, let's get the top half dialed in first. This is where we're at. Clearly, I wasn't able to hold my test piece up at the proper angle for this bar. So, this is not even close. My whole goal with this cage is to grow. Like, my own skill set is to grow. So that's why I'm doing it the hardest way you can do it. And I'm going to be stubborn about it. That's part of why I ran into a wall earlier, is because, or, you know, a couple weeks ago, because I'm going to be stubborn about this. I want this to be perfect, and I want to come out of this better at building roll cages. And I don't care if it costs me a sticker tube to do that. That's, you know, you pay for school. This is education. It's an education cost. It's how you get better, is you just gotta not be afraid to screw up. Fail forward. So I'm going to try to bend that, see if I can find my final angle that I'm shooting for. Alright, so this is 53 degrees indicated. We got our clock on here. We know that's where that needs to be. Look how much better that is. Just adding, what was that, 7, 8 degrees? And it'll look super schwanky, because looking pretty is just as important as functioning good when it comes to this stuff, at least as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to test our bottom piece. That's squared up on the bottom. See this? I think I'm going to have to trim out some more here so I have room for this to come over. I think we can make this first tube. This is the hardest tube. So once this one's made, I can mirror it on the other side. And then for the most part, man, we're all downhill from there. These two are the big, horrible ones. Everything else ain't going to be too bad. So since all my lengths were good, and it was really just my rotation that was off, I think I'm going to try like taping these together with a better rotation. See, that would be square. So I'm going to try taping them together with maybe half of what it was before. And then see if that gets me about where I need to be. This probably isn't going to work. It's probably just going to rip the tape, but gotta try something. Shit, put enough tape on this, you might not even need to weld it. Tape our roll cage together. So I need a lot more rotation. All right. All right. If this configuration works, I'm an idiot. So let's find out. Okay, good. I'm not an idiot. This needs to go that way more. All right. All right. Much to your dismay, the good news is I'm not an idiot. The bad news is I'm not entirely smart either. So I was thinking before that I put too much rotation into it. And what it's looking like here is that my problem initially was I didn't have a steep enough bend and I didn't have enough rotation. I needed to rotate it more. So we're going to tape this together, rotated more. And basically what we're doing here is I already have, this is the top bar. I already have the center line from my original top bar bent, right? And that's centered on this bend. So what I have here now is the center line marked for this bend radius. And the length is good. So once I get this rotated to the correct spot, I can measure the distance between those two center lines. And that will give me my rotation that I need to bend the correct tube, so that it fits correctly. So that's what we're monkeying around with now. I might show a little bit of this some more, or I'm just going to cut it out or whatever, but that's what I'm doing, is I'm going to tape and untape and tape and untape until I get this twist, because I've got the lengths good, until I get this twist right where it needs to be, which I'm guessing, this is what I'm going to try next, is right there. I'm guessing that's going to be pretty close. And so once I get those dialed, I'll have my two measurement points. And then we can go ahead and bend us an A-pillar. And if it fits, I can mirror it on the other side. And then I can stop feeling like a failure. So that'll be great. Than it had. And then I added like 3 or 4 degrees of bend to that tube. And I added like 8 degrees of bend to this tube. So we're going to tack it and then test fit it where it's not floppy at all, because the tape kept it pretty close, but it's still a little floppy. So we're going to tack this, try it back out in the car. All right, I've got faith in this one. I think we got it. I think we got it. So I want to hit you through the hole. So we are aligned at the top, aligned with the pillar, push forward where I want it, and centered up on the base plate. We got it. Now I just got to duplicate it in one piece. Reading 28 degrees, which is a couple degrees more than the last one was, the original. Then we go to 35. All right, let's see how she does. Go over on camera. So I've got the chunk for the base plate rough trimmed. I think we're going to be about perfect. A little bit more trimming because this needs to tuck up here more, but I'm hitting the roll cage right here, so this can't slide up that extra 1.5 2 inches to tuck up into there. And then shave a little bit down here on the foot. My angle's good. I just need to take a little bit more away. And heck, man, I think this thing's gonna slide right into place. There we go, that should fit better. What do you know? Almost like it was made to go that way. So, we're all fit and tacked. Now comes the really crappy part about doing everything by yourself. Is I gotta figure out how I'm gonna hold this in place so that I can TIG weld it. Because I'm probably gonna need both hands for that. Got one tacked in. Oh, what a pain in the butt. All right, time to make another one. Too far. Let's see if we can't get the dash back on here. Start figuring out this dash bar before it gets dark. Alright, I'm going to trim the corners on my dash pad. I'll bring you in for that. We're just going to rough trim those corners, get this in there so we can get the dash pad back on. It's finally looking like a roll cage. But there we go. We got our A-pillar bars done, which were a freaking nightmare. Oh my god, but they fit great. So my stubbornness paid off as far as in my mind. We got our header bar in. We got our dash cut so that it'll fit. I'm gonna think on if I want to do a dash bar on this, or if I just want to keep it clean like that and maybe make a couple of trim plates so that that looks pretty. And then let's see, next week we're gonna try to finish out this front. Well, actually, we will finish out this front next weekend. So we'll get our spreader bars up here. We're gonna get our diagonal door bars and our seat brackets in, or you know, the seat cage mount deal in at a minimum. So we'll be right back to it next weekend. I am undecided about the bar on the dash. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should I do dash bar, no dash bar? My cage looks like garbage. Whatever. Just let me know. And remember, if you don't get started wasting a bunch of money in tube, you never get finished.